lot of research that needs to be done. Let's see, it's being recorded, continue. But I'm just simply sharing what I see in daily date in the office. So let's go for it. So this is my name, and I'm gonna click to the next spot. So like I mentioned, I can't see anything on the chat right now, but I do want you to guys, as I start clicking, start thinking, and then feel free to interact in the chat if any of this experiences you have seen, you have been either a victim, or either you have just witnessed, or maybe you learned this from others, such as a car accident, a medical trauma, someone, a loved one had to be in the hospital because of a terminal illness, or maybe you yourself had to be in a hospital because you were scared for your life. Did you experience or witness domestic violence in your life? Sexual abuse, especially among the family members, or a neighbor, a friend, someone that you knew, sexual abuse or sexual assault / rape, someone that you did not know, someone just randomly attacked you, or emotional abuse, insults, calling you names, humiliating you, community violence. Did you grow up in a community where it was not safe? And could be in, not just in America, could be in a different country. School violence, this is going crazy. And I can understand how our kids are being exposed to guns and guns emergencies going on. Physical assault as well, physical abuse, neglect. So feel free to, if you feel comfortable, you can just write in the chat yes or no, natural disaster, impaired caregiver, meaning someone was not able to take care of you because of she had a drug and alcohol abuse maybe, or they were incarcerated and they were not able to be there for you. Terrorism, bereavement, loss of a loved one, maybe a pet, separation because let's say you immigrated to this country and you had to separate from your loved ones, or maybe you went through a divorce, or whether yourself or your parents divorced when you were a young age. Domestic violence, I think I misread that. War, political violence, forced displacement, meaning that because of political violence, you had to be forced and you had to be a refugee somewhere else. That is wild as well in other parts of our country. Sex trafficking, sexual exploitation. It is sad. I do see some cases about this one. Bullying, not just for kiddos, but also for adults. Cyberbullying, any type of bullying. Whatever ages you have. Did you witness suicide? That also affects us very much so. Did you attempted to have a suicide? That can be traumatic. Maybe you did not go all the way. Maybe you went halfway, or abortion, miscarriage. This is also hard, because there could be so much guilt and shame. A death threat, infidelity, poverty, and the list can go on and on. So just picture that, and I did it on purposely. The paper, as you can see on the right, is a picture, because the paper can be just so nice and straight, but once you crash it, you can't put it back. It's all wrinkle. So breakup, infidelity, and so on. So what is resiliency? So I put 3 examples about resiliency, and you guys can read it as well. It's the process, let me move my little pictures here, it's the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or any significant stress. That's the American Psychology Association definition. Another one we have is it's a capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. All right, Recover difficult, makes sense. Another one from Psychology Today, it says, allows some people to be knocked down by adversities of life and come back at least as strong as before. I like that definition as well. In summary, I will say, is our ability to recover from any changes or any misfortune, that I will say power to recover, power to recover. And someone also mentioned about it's an adaptive behavior that you can learn. And when you build our resiliency, we're able to recover from hardship in a more healthier way, not only mentally, but also physically. So I thought, okay, well, what is the origins of this word? And I learned this today. That it seems like there's a post-classical Latin definition where it comes from avoidance. And there's a second one that I do like the most for this topic. It's the classical Latin resilient, where it's the verb is resalire, to leap, which has multiple definitions of leap of jumping, leap of jumping on the long way over and over again to face adversities. And it also says to rebound or recoiled and to shrink from. So I thought that picture can help us to visualize, okay, you, the tennis ball, rebound back and forth, and the egg, that is not you, that you don't break. A bit of research that I do like and I find it interesting, and I knew this from way back when I was undergrad, is, and this is what actually made me curious about counseling, and is that the power that one strong adult relationship is the key ingredient in resiliency. One person. It obviously has to be positive, it has to be adaptive, where the person is responding. And another one that I like is resiliency depends on a supportive person. It has to be present, has to be responsive, and it has to, and mastering a set of capabilities that can help us respond and adapt in a healthy way. If those capacities and relationships that can turn into toxic stress, into horrible stress, and we don't want that. We don't want to make things unhealthy or normalize them, if that makes any sense. And I put a little bit of the research link right there at the end. What about the body? Well, research says for the kids that the developmenting brain relies upon consistency, serve and return interactions that happens between a young child and a primary caregiver. When these interactions occur regularly, they provide a scaffolding that helps build key capacities, such as the ability to plan, the ability to monitor, to regulate. If anybody's a parent, you may want to hear this. Ability to adapt in changing circumstances. I'm currently working with a kiddo. I have two kiddos that are having a really difficult time to adapt to changes and regulate their behaviors. This is kids who are 8 years old because of anger. And unfortunately, and us as parents, we don't mean any wrong. We don't know sometimes what we're doing, but parents sometimes when they say, I want them to avoid pain, I want to, not cry, not suffer, that is part of life. We know that pain is inevitable, but suffering, it's a choice depending on the circumstances here, okay? So kids do need to know that pain is part of our life. We cannot be the helicopter parent. We cannot protect them from this. This is gonna make them grow. Yes, and what else I'm saying here, but in the absence of this responsive relationships, if we're missing this part, the brain's architecture doesn't develop optimally. The body perceives the absence as a threat, and it activates a stress response that, if prolonged, the physiological changes affect the brain and overall the system, the physical and the mental. And this obviously can become toxic. But you know what? With this said, and the research, making, we were happy that we have this research. We also want to focus that our children are not just for this kingdom. Our children are also for heaven. No, and when we have that perspective, that spectrum of, I don't want them because I want them to be successful, I want them to have a house, I want them to that, but how about, what the reason why we have them, the gift, the responsibility that God has given us in our hands for something more, not just for this world, but for us, for later on. Some of the myths that I have, and I'm reading back and forth because I have my iPad here. The myths that you guys can see is that you might think, well, maybe resilience is something that I'm never going to show emotion. Wrong. You do want to show your emotion. You do want to regulate, my sisters. Because if you don't regulate, then I don't want this to bottle it up and then explode. Or even worse, I don't want you to numb your emotions, where to the point that you don't know what a feeling is. And I actually been working with someone who been having a hard time to even know what kind of emotions are anymore, because she's been so locked up into herself. And one of the suggestions I give for people who believe that maybe my feelings are being numb could be music. Music can open different kinds of emotions and memories, is it not? So music is wonderful. The second resiliency myth is that it's only about individual, only about me. Wrong. It's about individuals and relationships. And I'll tell you why. It's having others who respect you unconditionally, people who are rooting for you, people who are by your side. That is going to help you to build resiliency. So asking for help, it's not a sign for weakness. Asking for help is not a sign for weakness. It's a sign of strength. And people who learn how to ask for help are more likely to be resilient. And actually, I didn't know this, but research shows that people who ask for help are viewed as being more trustworthy and competent. Okay? Because, I mean, think about it. I mean, if your managers, if your supervisors see that you're asking questions, you're interested, you're involved, okay, this is a person who is responsible, who is committed, and is not afraid to ask questions. Moving on, must handle everything on your own. No, my sister. Asking for help is a resilience strategy. Ask for help as a resilience strategy. The thought about that always acts fast. No, you can take your own time. If you need to slow down, that is your own time. The process of healing may not be quick, okay, which is why we should not compare to other people's journeys. But when we are healed, we're able to remember life events with less or without experiences of pain and fear. So each of us are going to go with our own journey. And always fully composed? No, not always. It's not always pretty or one color or white or black. It's different shapes. Something that was not able to add on the PowerPoints is the thought about you either have it or you don't. That is not true. It's everyone can develop this. It says people who are resilient practice this daily. It becomes a daily habit. For some people, adversity becomes more natural. I get it. Sometimes we can see, how is this girl? she just had this and that, and she just looks just fine. Well, I'm here. I know. I've been there. And others can seem that they learn so quickly, but a way to help you or reframe that thought could be having an optimistic attitude. Attitude is everything. It will change your mood. It will change your glasses, your perspective of how you see things. Positive self-talk. We know Sister Ellen G. White talks about, the words have power, what you say to yourself, and gratitude. After all, resilience is a verb. Resilience is a verb, not a noun. And challenges become opportunities to grow and learn. And it's challenges is what make us unique too. It's your own. Your chaos is going to be different than somebody else's chaos. But you guess what? Once you learn to build resiliency, that is what makes you for who you are. And nobody else will be able to understand that other than you and God, of course. But that's the beauty. That's what makes you. And last point about myths versus fact is that resilient people never burn out. We know that in the Bible we have people that clearly have burned out in the past, and we're going to know a few Bible characters as we move on. So it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. So remember with the tennis ball, I know that sometimes tragic events occur because of wrong choices that we make. I understand that, but not everything. So we're going to have a taste of everything. So moving on, I did like this quote from Martin Luther King. If some of you guys might feel like, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. And this is the hope that I want to bring to you all. If anything else, keep moving forward. Amen. And remember about Paul. Paul, I know he became an evangelistic guy, and he also became a missionary for God. But he also had traumatic experiences, abuse, persecution. And we know that he says, we are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. Amen. So I know this attitude might seem unnatural, but this ability might seem supernatural, but we can do with all things with Christ who strengthens us. So I like pictures. That's why you're seeing a lot of pictures. There's different types of resiliency characteristics on Google. I just decided to pick this one that could resonate with what I want to share. While you're still looking at the pictures, I'm going to read through my notes that I have here. Connection, building connection. And at this age, I don't know if I can qualify myself young or old. Relationships do become priority, and friendships, you do have to make them intentional. Regardless if you're married or single, you have to guard your friendships. They're not as much as before, maybe when you were young, or if you have some sort of social media, your friendships are more smaller and closer. So connect with empathy and understanding people can remind you that you're not alone. This is again characteristics of how to have a resiliency. For example, when Christ asked for his disciples to pray for him, do you guys remember that in Matthew 26, where he says, sit here while I go over there and pray. And he says to the disciples, my soul is overwhelmed in sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. If Jesus himself asked for support, I think we should do the same. And if you're already doing it, continue doing it. And I know people are going back to church, which is great. If you cannot go back to church, continue doing Zoom, whatever you can to connect yourself, please do so, because this is going to help you to build resiliency. Another point is that take care of your body and mind. What do I mean by that is that when we are in constant fight or flight, say yes, we have a domestic violence, we're in the middle of a war, your body is always going to keep activated, and as well as the emotional factor, it's key here. Um, Emotional factors could be relationships, financial anxiety, you can have health issues. All of this is going to produce more stress. So, not even mention about fear. Fear, hurt, pain, all of those are going to be challenges, which is why those hardships we should think about. So instead of why me, what can I do next? You know, I'm sad about what this is happening. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do about it, but I'm gonna ask the question, what does God want me to do while I'm going through this process of mind and character for resiliency. Another piece I like is that I know it might be tempting to put a mask. When I say a mask, could be any substance use, could be relationships, could be food, sex, you name it, and that could be just a temporarily baggage or band-aid on yourself. How about, and I'm being into exploring other holistic or natural ways of enhancing those happy hormones. What I'm talking about here is oxytocin. I know you guys heard about this before so many times, which is the love hormone. If you don't have anybody to love or hug, you might have a pet. You might have a pet. Maybe your neighbor has a baby that you can go ahead and hug and get that oxytocin relationship lovey. Or maybe you can give compliments or receive compliments as well. How about the dopamine? We heard dopamine as the feel reward hormone. How you can do this by completing a task or trying to eat a healthier way or celebrate tasks or projects that you're able to do. And or also endorphins, which is the willpower, will help you to create good habits. um, Exercise. Everybody has been able to exercise, I hope so. I've been trying to do it where I live. I have not been able to go to the gym, but per se, but just been trying to do it wherever you can, your garage, your room, if you're in an apartment, in the park, create a habit now. Now is the time that you can create a habit. There's always a chance to create a new habit. And last but not least, building resiliency. And I think you see on the top left of setting a goal, setting a purpose, will help you find the reason. Why am I here? Where am I going? Where did I come from? Our youth, or sometimes adults as well, don't know what is their identity, what is their purpose, which they can be mixed and confused with other distractions going around, and then they're like, oh my gosh, what I'm going to do, I don't know where to start. God is telling us, he told us from the very beginning, he reconciled with us even when we were sinners, even when we were not even present. He reconciled with us. And I know when we talk about reconciliation, we talk about a relationship that you already had. In this case, God already had a redeeming plan for us. So amen for that. Moving forward, I'm just gonna share a few Bible characteristics with you guys, and you probably can guess by the picture who this person can be. Our first character is Hope. Or Job. And I'm going to say some Spanish words because English is not my first language. So forgive me if some of my words might be better pronounced in Spanish. So Hope, the patient of Hope. We know this story. And I'm putting here the Bible verse so you guys can read it as well. It's James 5:9-11, where it says, don't grumble against one another. Brothers and sisters, you will be judged. The judge is standing at the door. brothers and sisters, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. As you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. You have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy. Perseverance, key. So the story of Hope is a supreme example of resilience. We know that early in his life, Hope had an understanding that God is merciful and righteousness. Early understanding. He did not understand the reason for his suffering. He did not find support from his wife or husbands. His property and children were destroyed. And then he had a horrible disease. And yet somehow among all this, he never lost faith in God and endured until the very end. So what helped? Someone said, I was reading an article by someone who said that this patient, what she liked about his counselor is that my counselor insisted my painful circumstances will come to an end. Let me rephrase that because I don't think I said it that right. That this client was saying to someone else that her counselor insisted that her painful circumstances, ladies, will come to an end. And it looks dark and unending now, the counselor used to say to this client, but it will not last too much longer. This thought helped me to gain resiliency. In other words, the counselor kept the woman's hope alive. And that's where it's good to have someone else to help you as well. Okay. I posted a link of where I got this information. Spirit of prophecy tell us that calamities are not an index to sin. It is very natural for human beings to think that great calamities are a sure index of great crimes or enormous sins, but men often make a mistake and thus measuring character. We're not living in the time of retributive judgment. Good and evil are mingled. Calamities come upon all, or maybe some, only his faithful ones. It comes to everyone. Sometimes men do pass the boundary line beyond God's protecting care. And then guess who comes? Satan exercises his power upon them, and God does not interpose. For example, Hope. Hope was sorely afflicted, and his friends sought to make him acknowledge that his suffering was the result of sin and caused him to feel under condemnation. They represented this case as a great sinner, but the Lord rebuked them for their judgment. I hope this is making some sense for you guys. So how about the friends? That could be us too. That could be us. So there is a weakness in our world, it says Spirit of Prophecy, but all of the suffering is not the result of a perverted course of life. Hope, Job, is brought distantly before us as a man who the Lord allows Satan to afflict. The enemy stripped him of all he possessed. His family's ties were broken. His children were taken from him. For a time, his body was covered with loathsome sores, and he suffered greatly. His friends came to comfort him, but they tried to make him see that he was responsible. Have you ever made someone responsible for what they're going through? Have you ever perhaps remember a time where someone did that to you, or you did this to someone else, perhaps? And by seeking to make, and let me move my picture here, by seeking to make him guilty before God and deserving of his punishment, they brought a grievous test upon him and represented God in a false light. But Hope did not swerve from his loyalty. and God reward him his faithful servant. God will keep him safe, faithful as long as we keep him faithful, he will be faithful. He will always be faithful for us. Always. So reflection questions, I don't need you guys to answer right now, but it's the reflection questions that I have here is that remember of a time, sisters, when you were going, whatever you were going through at that time, that what kind of hope sustained you? What was that thought? What words spoken to you were helpful during that time? Which ones were not so helpful for you, or which ones were harmful? Okay, yeah. Next one, we have Joseph. I like Joseph, one of my favorite um, characters of the Bible. And I put the Bible verses or Bible reference for you guys to read that tonight if you would like to remember. If you try to put yourself into Joseph's sandals or Joseph's idea experience, if you will, think how discouraged he must have been. Okay, think about the potential of anger and bitterness that maybe he could have had. I know the Bible does not say that, but I mean, I'm sure the guy had some sort of emotions and thoughts going through his mind as well. He was no different than you and me. So the reflection questions that I want to prompt you and have you exercise here is, have you ever had a terrible experience that in the end, it brought you a benefit? How can this help you learn to trust the Lord in any adversity, even when nothing good seems likely to result? Let me jump to the next one. I have here, this is spirit of prophecy, patriarchs and prophets. He had been told of the Lord's promise to Jacob and how they had been fulfilled. How in the hour of need, the angels of God came to instruct, beautiful, to comfort, to protect him. And he had learned of the love of God in providing for men a redeemer. Now, all of these precious lessons came vividly before him. Joseph believed that the God of his fathers will be his God. He then and there gave himself fully to the Lord. I would love for us to have this. We do. In times like this, we have to strive for this relationship, strive to believe that God will come to instruct us when you are crying in your closet alone, when you need that comfort because no one understands you and no one believes you, or when you have been through a betrayal, when you have been through a breakup. And to know that God can protect you, because no matter what, he is our first husband. So Joseph, I like Joseph because it reminds me of character development. It helps me remind about how to have empathy. I can't believe the guy, he even cared to look around, who was sad, who was not himself. Forgot if he asked the bread guy or the wine guy who he was kind of not feeling himself or feeling kind of down, and he asked, what's the matter, what's wrong? He noticed, he was paying attention, he was empathizing with people around us. Are we doing the same thing too? Are we watching our sisters and brothers, how they're doing? Are we checking in with them, sending a text message, sending a phone call, reaching out? Empathy is something that we're lacking today more than ever. I feel like everyone feels entitled, and in the name of whatever pandemic that is happening around us, they can go ahead and yell and mistreat others. But where's empathy? Where is that understanding for others to what they're going through? Even though you don't have to agree, but at least you can listen and validate, someone. I like Joseph because of discipleship, his humility to learn, understanding of good of evil. These are some of the lessons that we can learn with Joseph. Although it is difficult to think of the benefits of suffering, especially in the midst of trial, we can ask God for the necessity strength to pass through difficulties. This is some Bible verses that I thought you guys can, maybe I can read one of them. Where bad situations can be turned into good. Are you sure? Well, Romans 5:3-5, it says, and not only so, but we glory in tribulations also, knowing that tribulation work patient, and patient experience, and experience hope. And hope maketh not ashamed, because the love of God shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Ghost, which is given unto us. That's just one example of how bad situations can turn into good by looking through this Bible verses. I think 2 Corinthians 1:3-4 talks about how comforting in suffering. It says, blessed be the God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort, who comfort us in all tribulation, that we may be able to comfort those who are in any trouble with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. Another Bible characteristic that we have is Naomi. So, Naomi, we understand that living, or I don't know, maybe I'm the only one here who was not born here in the United States. Maybe some of you guys as well can relate to language difficulties of learning how, go to school, go to college here. That was such a culture shock for me. The food, traditions, you name it. So with Naomi, what I want to bring here is that I can only imagine it was hard for her due to the circumstances that back then. I know there was a fame of what do you say, fam and Judah, that she was forced to come. You see, I'm I'm already double saying words here. That she had to leave, and then soon later, her husband passed away, and then her children. But at the deepest moment of trouble, Naomi's daughter-in-law, Ruth, as you can see in the picture, served as God-sent emotional support. Look at God, he's always ahead of us. Naomi must have been a remarkable woman to have inspired the devotion of her two daughters-in-law, especially Ruth, who accepted the God of Israel and made the firm decision to care for Naomi. To care for life and in a land whose inhabitants were historically their enemies. So the reflection question that I have here is how, however much we ultimately need to trust in God, we have to have that relationship with the Lord, and we have to surrender to him. But at times we do need a human help as well. When was the last time you really needed someone to help you? What did you gain from this experience? Let's see, who can guess who is this? Oh, I had the Bible verse here already. Esther. What were some of adversity, struggles, or pressures that Sister Esther had to face? I think you all do remember, and you all can definitely relate to what she had to experience back then. I have a quote here from Prophets and Kings about how the crisis that Esther faced demanded something quick. Sometimes at work I have to be quick and keep it calm, especially and you guys know this, when stuff comes to your face and you're like, okay, let me keep my posture. I know you're yelling at me. I know you're upset. I know you are telling me you're about to commit suicide, but I need to be, think quick. And Esther was this. Esther faced with quick, earnest action. But both she and Mordecai realized that unless God should work mightily in their behalf, their own efforts will be unavailing. So Esther took the time for communion with God, the source of our strength. God, go, she directed Mordecai. Gather together all the Jews that are in the present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink in 3 days, night or day. I also, and my maidens will fast likewise, and so I will go into the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perished, I perish. Woo. She was willing to take the risk. She was willing to take the risk. So the greater responsibility placed on her sister Esther was being left as a sole channel, as the front person, if you will, to save her nation, to save the nation. Mordecai asked her to meditate on behalf of the Jews, which she could not do without risking her life. When she hesitated, her cousin put still more pressure on her. If you remain silent at this time, rely and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. You can find this in Esther 4:14. So talk about stressed. You're the only one. You're the only one who, perhaps you can be the only one who can help your family. Perhaps you're the only one who has to be the parent when you yourself are only the child and you're seeing your parents, your brothers not being like in it, and you're the only one who is God is speaking to you, and you have to take that risk, that front fight, if you will, for your family. And I know it's hard. Finally, she appeared before the king, knowing that such as an ad carrier with a high chance of death. In the end, though, things worked out. However, dangerous situations was at that time for this young lady. So my reflection for you with this story, all of us, like Esther, are born into situations that not of our own making, like she didn't ask for this. This was just things that happen around her environment. What is your background? What things were handed to you? Whether you were a child, whether you're adolescent, whether you're an adult, maybe you're a caregiver for your parent, for a sibling, for someone who passed away. Now you have to take care of your niece, good or bad, that you didn't ask for. How can you learn to appreciate more the good that you have been given and to overcome the bad? Moving on. I have another guy, Paul.
Sorry, Lexi. I just wanted to remind you of the time. We want to start wrapping up so we can grab some time before we hit our 9 o'clock mark.
Good. 2 minutes?
1 minute?
1 minute.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah.
So with Paul, I'll just leave you with the thought about the secret of being contentment, of having this crucial component of happiness and psychological well-being. We know that contentment is a state of constant acceptance, of one situation. And I'll just skip to the slides, so for you just to keep to know, just to motivate you that this is a race. This is a race. Let us run with perseverance with the race marked out for us, mixing our eyes on Jesus, and know that you do not know that those who run in the race all run, but one will receive the prize. And remember, we are those eagles. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar their wings with like eagles. And yeah, I think I'm just gonna end with my little thought about summary that remember, resilience is not a success. It's about making choices. It's about, it's not keep doing the same thing as everybody else. Don't compare yourself. And know that, ask yourself, whatever you're thinking, is it helping you or harming you? Um, and talk to yourself like if, like someone you love. And that will be it.
Lexi, thank you so much. I really appreciate this last slide. Talk to yourself like someone you love, because how much do we offer kind words and you know, thoughtful moments with other individuals, but sometimes we're the harshest critic to ourselves, you know, and we can kind of bring ourselves down and whatnot. So I really appreciate this last slide. Um, so thank you so much for this presentation. There was a verse that I thought you were going to put into your last few slides, and I don't know if anyone else thought of this verse as well, but it's Proverbs, I believe it's 24:16, that says, you know, righteous man falls 7 times, but he gets back up again, right? And so it's just that thought of no matter what is hitting you, no matter what is bringing you down, get back up, get back up. And we don't have to do it alone, is what I gathered from your presentation. We have, you know, the help of other individuals, and more importantly, the help from God to keep on going. So thank you so, so much. And so I know we are kind of running out of time. However, if anyone has any thoughts or questions that they want to share with Lexi or ask Lexi, now is your time. We can maybe squeeze in 1 or 2 questions. But the floor is yours, ladies. Anyone has a question, feel free to raise your hand. Onika, yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Lexi, for sharing this uh for doing this presentation. It was very helpful because, you know, sometimes you feel like because you're not at where you feel like you should be, that there isn't a victory. But even in like getting up, or even in like moving forward, no matter how much you're moving, you know, that's a victory in and of itself. But I guess my question was, what's it called? So I had written something in the chat, but I also wanted to ask about the family dynamic. Like, I understand you touched on it, where it's like you feel like you're the only person that's like not success minded, but like mindful of the importance of like doing certain, like being mindful of like things that you say, things that you do, and like how that can like affect the future of like the family, and like how you know, saying things or doing things can you know, hinder someone else's mental health struggle. But like you feel like you're the only person that's mindful of that, like when there's um you know, kind of like the matriarch of the family kind of like fell off on that. Like what do you like, how do you cope with that? Like I know it's, I don't imagine that there's like a simple answer, but like, you know, how does one move in that without like, you know, giving up and just moving, going with the flow, so to speak? I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. Unfortunately, I can't see anybody because my computer froze, but I hear you. So